Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, great. Okay, well, welcome. It's good to see such a good turnout. This is the second meeting discussing the points from question one. The first meeting we got some fantastic input, so it's going to make this meeting very much easier. George, do you want to just do a quick intro on
What we're doing,
why and what we're doing?
of course. Yeah. So we've been working on this now for about a year. We've tried to pick up on the various different topics or issues or barriers that we've got to achieving the golden thread. So one of the key ones that we identified, as I say, right at the beginning, was the problem of basically the wrong selection or of fire safety products, and we kicked it off with a workshop at Digital Construction Week last May, and we followed that up with a series of roundtable workshops like this, which we're now getting to the conclusion of, and the intention is that we're going to feed this information back into Dlux as a proper industry response. So that's question one. Question two was, how do we make sure that the information, the asset safety information, actually goes through the whole life cycle? How do we ensure that building safety data isn't just a snapshot in time? And also, how do we address the problem of largely CPD impacting on the completeness of a design before construction starts? So Gateway 2. So what the result of that is that we've created 4 publications, which I'll show you one of those. I'll show you the one that we've got that we're actually going to be discussing this morning now. So this is where we are with this publication to date. And the content of that is contractual arrangements, the role of insurers, online registers. So there's a whole range of different suggestions as to how we do things. So that's the point about this session here. So I'm going to hand you back to Richard because we've only got an hour, and
Okay,
we
great.
can
Thank
then
you.
work on that.
Yeah, so as George said, the purpose of today, we've got a lot of points as what we should be doing. You know, how do we get around that issue? What should we do? We've got those points. We've now, from the first meeting, got a lot of answers as to how are we going to fulfill those points. So this meeting is to tie up, fine tune maybe some of those, and to cover the points that we didn't cover the first time round. Jess, do you want to put up the Word document for the up-to-date Word document for this question? There we go. The blue writing are the how points we got from the first meeting. Yes, scroll down just because we've got a lot on the competence side. Let's see where we are with something that's a bit more lacking. Okay, right. Stop. Right. So we've got contractual arrangements. Consider changing current contractual arrangements which can hinder good design process. Now we've got a certain amount of input into this already. We've talked about implementation of a 2-stage tender approach, how we assess the competency of contractors, emerging trends in new forms of contractual arrangements which are coming into usage following on from the Building Safety Act. There's certainly a feeling that it's a transition and it's kind of happening not exactly automatically, but organically. Scroll down a bit more, Jess.
But sorry, Richard, could I just ask? So what we learned 2 weeks ago on this was that Metropolitan, for example, they are actually doing that now. So they've fundamentally changed the way in which they're doing procurement on new projects. So they're looking for the design to be completed prior to Gateway 2. So I'd be interested if any of the other developers, the colleague from Riverside was on earlier, whether we're seeing that as a trend with any other developers or main contractors. Waits are also doing it.
Jarek.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch or ask a question regarding what you're showing now. What's your view on this two-stage tender? Because from my experience, I know it's supposed to be designed to protect client interests, but it feels like open wallet surgery from the client perspective. What's your view? Is that actually working or not?
Who are you asking, Jarek?
A generally open question to all of you here, because
anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody? What do you? What's the feeling on that? The two-stage tender approach. This is a very important question.
No one is brave enough, right?
Well, let's just give me a second. Let's pick on a few people. Alistair Perry.
Hello.
Hi there. So what's your feeling on this, Alistair?
I'll be honest, it's not something really that impacts me in my role. It's not something I've got a particular view on. But it doesn't impact me at all, if I'm honest.
Okay.
I think it needs to be either developers or main contractors that will answer that question.
I don't know who developers are on here. Who was the guy? Who was it from Riverside? You were speaking to earlier, George?
I'm from Riverside, but again, I'm not really close to this, to be honest, so I can't really make a comment that would be of any use, if I'm honest. We do have problems with contractors, and I don't think I'll be opening up a great revelation when I say that. We have major issues with contractors and their competence and the quality of the work they do, but that's probably true of any social housing provider.
Okay, is there anybody from Roy Buckingham?
So I missed the first meeting, so coming into this a little bit later. Define what you mean by a two-stage tender approach. Are you suggesting that the whole design phase of the building should be completed before they then price for the construction element of that as part of the design and build?
In principle, that's what the suggestion is. So it's my understanding is it's an alternative to design and build, where the design carries on into construction, so that there's no certainty. And one of the key issues with that, I'm being fed back all the time, that the building services is being designed too late.
I mean, there are some issues that brings. I mean, for instance, one of the things that I find quite often in projects is that the choice of fire doors to be used in the project is left very late into the project as to who is going to be supplying those, and depending on who is supplying those will determine which product is being offered. And that then has implications for the hardware and the function of those doors that are being used in the project. So, for instance, if access control is to be part of the project, unless you decide the doors very early on, you can't define what the fire certification is for those doors with the hardware that's required to provide the access control function. So it means that those decisions by the contractors have to be made very much earlier in the whole process, because leaving the doors to a later stage which then impacts on the hardware that can be used on those doors, particularly with the defined requirements for fire certification nowadays, becomes very difficult. So it will have a definite impact on decision making or hardware that's going to be used and products that are going to be used in that build construction at a much earlier stage.
Yeah, that's my understanding of what they're actually trying to achieve. What they're actually trying to achieve is that the selection of products or solutions and products that will impact on safety needs to be done before the end of Gateway 2. Yeah, and if you're then changing things after that, then it needs to go through that change control process, which can mean that there's a delay of 6 weeks. And you've got to give justification for that. So the principle behind it is to remove the opportunities to do the classic value engineering exercise. So that's apparently the process.
That certainly seems to be the best way forward.
Yeah.
Because it does iron out a lot of the problems that we get later in projects.
Yeah.
Okay, Martin Fackrell.
Yes, good morning, everybody. I'm Martin Fackrell. I'm the Managing Director of Mandeek UK. We manufacture fire dampers and smoke control dampers, control equipment.
Excellent, excellent.
Nice to see you all. Can I just ask, Colin Newman, are you the author of HTMO 501? Or is that a different Colin Newman? Hello, Colin. Martin Fackrell. Nice to see you. How you doing? You okay?
I'm good.
So from my experience, then a lot of my customers are getting involved in PCSAs and are leaning on me quite heavily for design support. And I'm seeing that more and more and more. So I think that's going to become something that's happening all the time. That's two stage is going to become the norm, certainly from the little bit that I'm seeing from my glimpse of my sided industry.
And you're prepared for that from your end?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. So we offer vast amounts of training, and we're geared up for that. And people come and ask us because we are kind of geared up for that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Could I just ask, Martin, because one of the things that people are concerned about is you providing that free advice.
Yes.
And then somebody substituting down the line.
That is an absolute danger. Our products and that's going to happen. The sell for me and my company is that we provide such good technical advice and support that people say, okay, look, these companies are proactive, they're helpful, they know what they're doing, we're going to rely on them. It doesn't always happen, of course, but there's a lot of products out there that don't want to do what they should do on the tin, and so we point out where people's products don't do what they say they should do.
And presumably that's a danger that applies to everybody. So
absolutely,
it could kind of even itself out, can't it?
Yes, it can.
And the point about the construction control plan and the fact that obviously your dampers would be considered, I think, a fire critical product,
correct,
a safety critical product, and therefore they'd fall under that particular requirement for those changes to be notified to the regulator later down the line. So that should discourage the value engineering aspect of things.
Dean Sales.
Sorry. If I could just finish very quickly, it's very important that consultants take all of the guidance that they have from all of the experts we have here and then not allow themselves to be changed. That you do all that good design work, it's all working, and then someone undoes all that work by putting in an inferior product, whether that be fire doors or whatever it is. And I was listening to the colleague earlier on saying about fire doors at a later stage, how that drastically changes things. If something is specified, it's really important that stays that way. because all the good work that's done around that product, that solution, that system, steelwork or whatever it is then subsequently changed and lost. And that's where problems come in are not noticed, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Dean Sales.
Oh, hi everyone. So look, my view on this is that look, I've seen the good and the bad of these sorts of contracts from a fire safety kind of professional perspective. Having worked on various projects ranging from rail to aviation to housing. I mean, if I take rail for example, their project process is that the designs are done at pre-construction stage or stage, at Gateway 2, in order that the systems are identified, they're designed, they're specified long before that project even goes out to tender. The biggest problem that I come across, and this is just kind of I suppose emulating what Martin has said, is that we provide, or I get asked consistently a lot by consultants to provide them with support in terms of the design and specification of both active and passive life safety systems, whether that's fire alarms, voice alarms, smoke control systems, even as far as going into things like fire doors and access control. I think there was a gentleman that mentioned about, we can't even specify what fire doors that we're going to be able to put into a project until we've worked out what access control systems we're going to be putting in. I think the biggest kind of element is that when a main contractor goes into a PCSA agreement with a client and then engages a consultant and an electrical contractor, invariably they try to do all of this work themselves. They don't engage early enough with the specialists to be able to support them to kind of get all of the technical elements and the technical expertise, because consultancy generally will be good at things like electrical, mechanical kind of overviews, but when it comes to designing smoke control systems or doing access control elements or designing life safety fire alarm systems, specialists like myself, we don't get engaged early enough. So what it ends up is that consultants they put their things together, it then goes out to tender, and ultimately what you get then is people like me going back and saying this doesn't work.
We're going to come on to getting engaged early. We need to move on actually. So can I just ask Colin, have you got something briefly to say on this?
Yeah, sure. I see this this pre-construction design process really just readdressing the balance. For too long, we've focused on cost and program as the primary measure to whether or not a project has been successful. And no point along that have we really stuck to, well, does this actually meet the technical brief? Has the design been done correctly? And does it all actually fit together? Instead, we're left with these disparate parts that are just cobbled together to meet a program and a cost envelope. And that's probably why we've had such catastrophic failings, and why so many of the projects that we've had in recent times, we've spent lots of time going back to and trying then to right the catastrophe that they've turned out to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And hence all this talk about the two-stager. Jarek.
Yeah, just quickly to basically explain why I started this. I am electrically biased designer, consultant, experience in stage 4 onwards design most of the time. So, and I can see there's a massive difference between the group of people who design up to stage 3, and that design is completely different than the actually finished product, let's say. And what also is happening, there's a misalignment of the architecture structure design in comparison to MEP design, that quite often you would have architecture developed to RIBA stage 4, while M&E is still at stage 3 or even less. And that's what's causing, because the procurement needs to carry on, keep going. You then have this two-stage tendering process, which is based on cost plans. And there's, yeah, it would be nice if the design was finished, but in practice is not. And everything is based on cost plans, which then means there's a lot of changes down the line and client has to pay for it. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't really work. And I just wondered what can be done about it. That's why
absolutely. Well, that's what we're trying to do. Gets the wisdom of crowds here. Right, Jess, can you scroll down a bit? Yeah, the planning and design stage. This is about getting people on board at an early stage. I think we've covered that. Go down a little bit more. Right, wait. Right, go back up, Jess. Yeah, keep going. Right. Right, again, manufacturers and installers should be engaged early during the design phase. A little bit further up, we'd said also M&E and maintenance. Now this is, while early engagement is often crucial, caution is needed to avoid manufacturers becoming designers. Manufacturers' early design risk studies can be useful. New Gateway 2 tool could encourage manufacturers to provide more project-specific information. Okay, we've got a few manufacturers on the call. Who's got something to say on that?
Yeah,
Martin.
I can say something. I don't think that I would be shocking many people to say that consultants that we work with often know very little at all, and it's very, very difficult for people to design something when they have no great understanding, or if they do have understanding, it's a little bit and not enough. So I think that upskilling of designers needs to be really important, because the reason why manufacturers become designers is because they're almost stepping in for the designers.
Is there an element also with manufacturers not providing enough information, not enough product specific information? Is that relevant?
I think that's very, very true. That if you ask someone a question, they'll give you the answer based on the products they have available, not on what the correct answer should be. So
that's a good point, isn't it?
We are lucky or well prepared that we have products for almost every situation. So we can be honest and upfront.
Yeah.
Other people are not in the same situation, so they won't give you all the information that you need, because that would mean you wouldn't use their products. So the CCPI, I think, is really important. It's something that my company is going to be involved in, because I think this moral change is important, really, really important. And
Excellent.
I think that people have for too long said, if you read it this way, you can get away with it.
Yeah.
I think that moral change is really
that's important. The crux of many issues I think that we're dealing with. Roy Buckingham.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with everything that's just been said, but I would add a couple of things. I mean, firstly, I think that manufacturers actually are absolutely integral to correct design, because they understand their products, they understand the applications their products can be used in, and the standards and regulations that their products comply with. I also agree that a manufacturer will offer solutions that is based on what they have available, but that shouldn't be a problem, providing it meets the requirements and it is a good fit for the application and the design that's required.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, agreed.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, too long manufacturers are seen as people don't want to engage with them because they fear they're just being sold to. if you use the correct manufacturers, then they will follow that moral code, and they will ensure that the correct solutions are put forward for that specification and for that project. It's using unscrupulous suppliers or manufacturers are the ones that probably won't adhere to these requirements. But I do feel that they are integral to that design process, and early engagement is key to getting that specification right.
Absolutely. I think we can all agree with that one. George.
Yeah, Paul McSully, who's one of the sort of passionate leaders behind this from Mace, what he says, what he's educated me on, is there's two levels of specification. There's a descriptive specification, which is typically what we get from MBS, and then you've got a prescriptive specification, which is the solution to that descriptive specification. And I think in part that's what we need to get to, where there's a prescriptive specification that says this is how that particular product needs to be able to perform. And I think that's where I think the manufacturer's input needs to come in, because they're probably the only ones that have got the knowledge to be able to detail that.
Yeah, Simon Banfield.
Well, you know, we work very closely with manufacturers. We don't see them as necessarily a problem.
Sorry, what do you do, Simon?
Sorry, so I suppose I'm the commissioner. So you know, we have 20,000 homes, and we look, you know, so I look after the capital programme. So
so where are you from, Simon?
Sorry, Wolverhampton Homes. Beg your pardon.
Yeah,
so,
great, thanks. Sorry.
Jumping straight in, yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, just to sort of pick up on a couple of things that have been said.
Yeah.
You know, so manufacturers, you know, we work very closely with a range of manufacturers, recognise their skills and their inputs. However, I'd sort of push back on one point that was made, which was about a comment in relation to unscrupulous manufacturers, and simply ask the question, how does a client know? You know, because with the greatest of respect, you know, that you know, manufacturers are ultimately, you know, staffed with salespeople who are all very, very, very convincing. So it comes down to experience and the skills of the consultants that you appoint to be able to navigate, you know, people who, you know, many clients, let's be absolutely frank about this, don't necessarily have the skill sets in house. They're very reliant on the expertise that they're provided, and it's a minefield. So
can I ask you, do you buy in expertise? Do you bring in consultants who are specialists in different areas?
Yes, we do. Yeah,
you do.
Yeah, we've got a very large. So you know, we're using Jacobs as our consultant. You know, obviously, a very large sort of global consultancy, but and you know, and it's expensive, but we're confident that we're getting some excellent advice, and you know, with 45 in scope, you know, blocks being, you know, under various stages of refurbishment, you need to be confident that you're actually getting things right and doing these things. So you know,
yeah,
so
especially with refurbishment, because there's quite a lot of grey areas in there, isn't there?
Absolutely, and you know, and picking up on a previous point that was made, you know, we've always come at this that, you know, the building regs is the minimum that we aspire to, not the maximum, which has been the problem of the industry historically.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
So
Roy, sorry.
So yeah, just picking up on a couple of points there from George and from the previous gentleman. So firstly, specification, yeah, I'd expand a little bit on George's two types of specification, descriptive and prescriptive, in saying that, you know, you can also have performance-based specifications or product-based specifications. So again, you know, it doesn't have to be defining if you're working with the right manufacturer, they don't have to define a specific product. They can just define the performance level that you need to achieve for the solution. And just picking up on that about scrupulous and unscrupulous sort of manufacturers, again, it's where the due diligence comes in checking that the people you're engaging are perhaps members of trade organisations. You are checking the diligence, doing your due diligence to check the competency levels of the people that you're engaging with. You know, if, for instance, somebody is specifying hardware for fire doors, door hardware, then if they're a member of the Guild of Architectural Ironmongers and they have registered architectural ironmongers employed within that business, then they are going to give you the best advice. And that will be performance and standards and regulations based advice rather than just product specific advice. So again, there's all of those elements come in, and employing the right consultants who will understand that and know which trade organisations exist for those product ranges is the good way to go.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, let's scroll down a bit. Oh, just one thing. Manufacturers' early design risk studies can be useful. Is that something that the manufacturers on the call normally do?
Yes, we do. So we point out where there will be challenges very, very early on, and we educate people to actively look for those challenges with regard to damper compliance, so that they can, in theory, protect themselves, but more importantly, to try and solve it.
Sure. Okay, excellent. Okay, scroll down a little bit, just. That's all our answers. Right. Okay. Product information standards. Now this covers actually quite a wide area. All product information should adhere to CCPI formats. Anybody got anything on this section?
I have a question to ask, if
Absolutely.
I may. The CCPI is something that my business will be getting involved in. We've had some training from them, and that's where we're going. Does everybody in the meeting think that this is going to become the norm? And if you're not CCPI registered, that's going to be a metaphorical black mark against you?
Yeah, I kind of think that this is gradually going to seep in and become a norm, certainly probably starting off with government, local authority type contracts where it can be enforced. But it's going to take time because it's going to need people to sign up and become part of this scheme. Certainly, there's a cost to it, so there is a barrier to becoming registered and involved. It's something that certainly I think all companies in the construction industry should be working towards.
Stuart Southall.
Yeah, I was going to come on to that, Martin. Hi, Martin.
Yes,
I do think it is something that's going to be needed. When you've got tier one contractors, you've got architects or manufacturers signing up to this and creating that. This is the right path to sort of go down in information sharing, etc. Then I think that's where it starts to grow, and that's where it becomes, if you're not within the CCPI, then we've checked that your expertise, etc. You're doing the right thing. If you're not in there, then trying to get access into those tier one contractors or those projects might become more difficult as it progresses.
I think so.
It would also address some of the issues with regards to the unscrupulous manufacturers as well, because they're all following that moral and correct way of describing their products.
Yes, that's a good point, George.
Just to explain, the CCPI is being run by the Construction Products Association. That's my understanding, largely.
Yes.
And there's also the Office of Product Safety, I think. So I've been involved with both of those organisations. And also we've spent years working with the BRE to come up with a standardised data template that can be used to standardise the way all product information is being described. And that's also something that the CPA have been planning to incorporate in this. There's significant resistance from the manufacturers in the industry, though, some of the major players, for agreeing to describe their products in a standardized way. And we've been on that journey for 8 years. 8 years. So I'm just flagging up the fact that although the CCPI is an important thing to support, because I think the principle of it, I think we also need to try and encourage as many manufacturers as possible to standardize the way they're describing their products, because at the moment data sheets are unique to every different manufacturer.
Yeah,
and I know that I know that Roy and the ironmongery profession has done some tremendous work in that area, but there's still quite a lot to do. There's many products that aren't. Sorry.
No. I know in a couple of other meetings we've had quite intense discussions around unique identifiers, not just for buildings but for products and product attributes.
Yeah.
Just before I bring you in, Richard, can I just go back to Martin? How do you feel about that?
It's a little
standardized product data templates and unique identifiers.
It's a little bit easier for the world of dampers, because we've got a harmonized product standard, a classification standard, and a test standard. So we present our evidence or our documentation in a similar manner now, in a declaration of performance and a COCOP, which is both pretty much standardized. Not always. People do leave off information. If it's not good information, they just leave it off, which is frustrating. Overall, I think for our products, it's probably achievable, but I do think for other products or other systems that are not standardized in the same way, I perfectly understand how that would be difficult, trying to get everybody to put their information in the same format. I completely understand, but I think it's easier for dampers.
Okay, fair enough. If I keep asking Martin because he's the only manufacturer I know of in the call. And we're going to be talking a lot, obviously, around manufacturers' responsibilities and the like. So if there's any other manufacturer on the call, please let me know, and then I can call on you as well. Okay, Richard Whitaker.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm new to this first meeting. I've been involved with George for about 10 years, but I just want to reinforce what sort of George was saying. And in terms of standardization of things, back in 1964, there was a report done by Sir Harold Emerson called The Diagnosis of Ill Health and a Call for Remedial Action. And that went on to form the Banwell Committee in 1966. And that was all about the contracts that we used and the risk transfer and that sort of thing. And the recommendation of the Banwell Committee was there was one standard form of contract for main contractors, one standard form for subcontractors. Now, here we are, 2024, and we can't even get a standard JCT because of client amendments. And that is because, I think Simon mentioned it earlier, it's about, as a client, you can't have a skill set in every discipline. So you have to rely on the experts to come along and make the offer. So you have to have something that's flexible for that offer, because if it's the right offer, you're not going to move away from that because it's not standardized. So if we could achieve that in the future, fantastic. But I think there is a need now under the Building Safety Act and the asset management and everything else, in that we have something that actually accommodates the existing. And a bathroom fan is a bathroom fan. Don't care which manufacturer it is. What I do care about is it's 100 litres a minute or under the 50 metres limit, or a minute, whatever it is. So it's about balancing those two journeys. There's a shorter journey for now and a longer journey to get to
It's
The
about
absolute
priorities then.
utopia.
You're saying
Yes.
it's about priorities. Great. Graham Ware.
Yeah, this is a little bit off piece, but I just wanted to come in at this point while we're talking about sort of product certification. So as a social housing provider with 80,000 properties, we obviously replace a lot of fire doors, and I would say fire doors are a little bit different to perhaps some other products. And I know really we're talking about new builds here, new build projects, but a lot of organisations now are considering moving away from third-party accredited fire door installers because they use subcontractors, so very often the standard of fit is no better than a joiner would do. But increasingly we're finding that in fact, as an organisation, we do not now request fire door surveys, because I can guarantee you any fire door survey from a third party accredited organisation will tell me to replace every single one of my fire doors simply because I don't have a certificate for it. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the door, but just because I don't have a certificate, they're saying you must replace it. And that just goes round and round in a circle forevermore. And it's just not sustainable, you know. So I just wanted to bring that point in. I know it is peculiar to fire doors, but nevertheless, there's an issue there with the industry where they're just moved towards replacing fire doors when it's not strictly necessary.
Well, one of our Bin for Housing stalwarts is from a social housing provider, and they are doing exactly that. They are taking out every fire door.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
The other thing I would just say, sorry to just jump in.
No, come on.
But the other thing that you should be aware of, Graham, and everybody else, is that we've had a team working on fire doors in particular and standardizing inspections of fire doors for the last year. And we've now got a publication which you can download from the website, but I can send it to you. And the important thing about that is that it's being designed in line with what's done in the health service and the standardized ways of doing inspections. So that's something that I think will be of interest. Sorry.
Certainly, yeah.
Thanks.
No, absolutely. I'm glad you said that. Paul.
Yeah, so just to clarify, just so happens I was reviewing the CCPI guidance documents this morning. It actually states that each product should have product data sheets from a recognised product data template. So that is a requirement of the CCPI.
Excellent. That's good news, Paul.
Yeah, really. Excellent. Very good. Thank you. Andy Bell.
Hi. Just going on to the fire doors. We're FIRAS approved. I don't agree with some of the approvals, but I've got 60,000 fire doors on maintenance, and we don't condemn on non-licensed products. We would rate the doors as nominal or notional, depending on the age of the door, condition of the door, and the fit of the door, and providing that the correct ironmongery is in place, the door opens and closes, the gaps are in place or can be altered, then we would pass those doors and do regularly. So I think, again, you're coming back to unscrupulous manufacturers. You're also looking at unscrupulous maintenance companies.
Sure.
I'm not sure I wholly agree with that. And because I think that they're not necessarily unscrupulous, and I'm not saying they are or they're not. I'm saying they're not necessarily. And my feelings for that are, if you can't prove it, it's probably not right. And I think that's maybe that there may be some companies that say, oh, if you can't prove it, you just need to replace it then. Tough. But there could be other companies that in some situations that the door is not quite right. They're not willing to take that engineering approach that was just described. Does it work? Is it correct? And I'm just saying we can't prove it's okay, so it's not okay. And I don't know way around that.
Yeah, I mean, again, there was just a couple of bits I wanted to add to that. I mean, the reality is, if you've got however many thousands of fire doors which have no fire test evidence available to understand what the original performance requirement was that was achieved, you've got no way of identifying what the performance is you're likely to get from that door. I agree with the notional and nominal status of doors, and that should be used wisely. There's a trade-off between obviously replacing every single door and it being viable to actually achieve. But you know, and I would suggest that a lot of these people who perhaps condemn these doors are not necessarily unscrupulous. They are covering their backsides. At the end of the day, they don't want to be the ones that are pulled up when a fire spreads through a building, and they were the last person to have checked those doors and said that those doors were okay. So there is an element of risk aversion in that sign off. At the end of the day, as an end client, you know, the end client has to take their an approach with an attitude to risk and decide what level of risk is acceptable, and having doors accepted as notional or nominal may be an acceptable risk. But the reality is, unless you have a door which has a confirmed performance criteria, you have no way of understanding or knowing what performance you're going to achieve from those doors. And I've been involved a lot in fire testing. Minor changes in hardware can have a dramatic impact on the way that a door performs.
Right, we need to move on. So, George, can you say what you're going to say quickly?
Yeah, I was just going to say that it also needs to be taken into account the fire strategy for the building and also the rest of the compartmentation. So it may well be that a door may not be perfect, but it can certainly withstand an hour or more's fire, in which case it may well be satisfactory. So it's a matter of looking at things. This is only what I've been told, Roy, from people who, you know, far cleverer than me.
Okay. Colin, can you be brief, please?
Yeah, sure. I think the other issue that we've got is more often than not the fire strategy is missing or was never actually fully documented. So we don't know how important or how critical a particular door is. The organisation in question has never considered and published its risk appetite, so we don't know what the risk they're willing to accept or not. And then on top of that, the post contractor that is being used to assess the condition of a fire door or any other part of the fire precautions is also got one eye on their PI insurance, which is ratcheting up and up and up and up. And as soon as that individual is making some kind of assessment as to fire performance, the PI cover steps in and says, you're not permitted to do that. You can only say, does this meet this particular requirement? And you can demonstrate that if you've got a piece of paper that says it does, or doesn't it? And if it doesn't, then you cannot assess its performance.
Okay, great. Thank you. Jis, can you scroll down to go to the end? Let's see if we've got anything that we haven't got answers on. Oh, there we go. Look. Right. Considerations at installation stage. Risk assessment. Right. Mandatory installation accreditation should be implemented. I know we've got some people who's going to disagree with that. We've heard all already. Anybody else think that mandatory accreditation should be implemented, or think it shouldn't?
Yeah, I think it should.
I think it should as well. I think it should. I've heard of. I've been on a construction site where the AOVs at the top of the stairwell were all Chevs that had 5,000 Newton actuators on each side of it, and one of them was missing. So someone had made one out of timber. They'd made a vent out of timber and painted it aluminium to look like metal. They'd made a smoke vent out of timber and painted it to look like metal. That's on one of my sites that I worked on. I was stunned. Things I've seen on construction sites is stunning. So mandatory installation accreditation, absolutely. But I mean, you wouldn't get a gas engineer to work on stuff something that's not you know. You get a competent gas engineer. You get your MCB board signed off at your house, and then you go and let with greater respect, a carpenter put in a smoke control damper for life safety, or a a ductwork contractor that's never even seen one is allowed to install one. That can't be correct. Can't be correct.
Absolutely. Colin Newman.
Yeah, I agree. We should have mandatory accreditation, but I think that accreditation needs to be robust and resilient. There are no end of accreditation programs that I've seen where when you challenge someone that has been accredited and you go to their accreditation body and say, well, clearly this isn't right. Their answer is, well, we don't verify whether or not they're up to the job. It's whether or not they actually jump through the hoops we've put in front of them, and we don't monitor that. We don't oversee that. There's no process by which we can remove them from our accreditation register, which is just a farce. There's no point in having it.
Absolutely.
I've actually gone on training, Colin, before now in my role as technical and managing director. I've gone on installation accredited courses, and I've had to answer the questions wrong to give the people the answers they're expecting. So if I gave them the correct answer, I would have failed the course. But I had to answer them wrong to get a certificate, and I've got a little card to say I'm now accredited and trained, and I had to answer the questions wrong. So I completely agree with you.
Well, then you get the situation where, excuse me, where the team, excuse me, the team leader is accredited, and he's leading a team of 10 people who are doing the installations, and they're not. Yep. But it's okay because he is.
20, Richard.
Okay,
20.
Alistair.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that's really close to my heart because all our installer members have to be third-party accredited. And, you know, in some cases, I believe that can put people at a commercial competitive disadvantage and need to pay and to go through all the hoops you've talked about. Now, I know the third-party certification bodies we work with, 3 in particular, the LPCB, FIRAS and IFC, are very rigorous in the audits they conduct of approved companies. They do remove them from the registers. It's a fantastic thing. And as I say, we won't have anybody in BAFSA as an installer member who is not third-party certificated. And I think that needs to be the case across the industry, particularly when you're dealing with something like a sprinkler or other fire suppression system that's a life-saving system. It needs to be third-party accredited.
Absolutely. Thank you. Steve.
Good morning, gents. Good morning.
Morning.
For my side of things, is in the industry for 30 years as a contractor and a quantity surveyor in the world of fire safety, and coming at it from a fire DNA point of view, I think certification accreditation is essential. I think, you know, there's been so many good comments about aligning it financially for tender, aligning it for compliance checking. You know, one of the guys earlier talking about not replacing those. If we're working to a BM-TRADA scheme and the approved of the ARTs, we've got a standing chance of continuing to develop and better our assets on our various sites. But I think what we're missing is how do we record that? We can't just take it for granted that contractor A is BM-TRADA and the fire door inspector is that, or the passive fire inspector or whatever. I think we need to join the dots, and, you know, systems like Fire DNA let you embed everything digitally, which ticks the box with legislation about, you know, 24/7 digital access to what we have, and all parties can feed into that. But from my point of view, I think it's essential.
Absolutely, thank you. And yeah, we've actually got a point there about installers using digital tools. Jarek.
Yeah, I'm listening to all of this, and we did mention checking competence, compliance, certification, project templates, and so on. What I feel is missing is the safety measure of acceptance of the information product certification or qualification. This is actually, I think, a problem, a wide problem in industry. I know if the government, UK government, is driving ISO 19650 as a process to deliver projects, and they put heavier, or they put responsibility for acceptance for the client, for the end client. But there is no this is not regulated. There's no guidance, and no one takes a responsibility for accepting information, product, or whatever. I think that's very important, and something should be done about it, because you may get wrong product, but someone accepted it, and then this is just passed on down the line, and then no one else checking it because everyone else downstream thinks it's okay. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anybody else on this? Okay, we've just got a couple of minutes. Is there anything anyone else thinks that we haven't discussed that we should have, briefly?
I wonder, could we nip back up to the first section? I know we skipped through it, but I just wonder if it's possible to comment on or have a wee look at that.
Right to the top, Jess. There we go. On competence.
Okay.
Is that where you want?
Yeah. It was just to look through those if possible. I've nothing to say on the ones that are up. But
all right, scroll down just a little bit. Okay.
These are all available as Word documents for anybody to comment on and send back to us.
Oh, that's fine. I'll look at them.
Yeah. You'll get a copy of this with the additional notes on. It's very much a process because there's a lot of input, and it's all got to be. We record all our meetings and produce high point notes. Anything anyone puts in the comments, we include in that. But obviously, it's quite, as you can probably appreciate, it's a mammoth task to actually then consolidate that into a coherent document. And when we're still having meetings, it's not really possible to do it until the end, really. So it's very much a work in progress. But we'll get these out to you with the high points from this meeting and the video link next week. Anybody else? Anybody got anything they want to say?
No, it's nice to meet you all this morning.
George, you've shared something. Is that you?
Yeah. What I was just going to show is that this is the main BIM for Housing website. All of the recordings are on these sections here. So you can watch these and also get high point notes for each one of the meetings. So we're going to be doing that for this meeting. But just to pick up on what we're just saying there, this is one where we've done a deep dive on all of these different asset types. And for sprinklers, for example, we've actually got this. This was done last year. So this is going through the detail of what a sprinkler system is. Alan Brinson has given us a lot of information on here, but also looking at what the different risks and what do people do to sprinkler systems to stop them from working, and then information about installation and things like that. So this is the key information that the expert team put together. So that might be something that's of interest. And for, we've got exactly the same for fire doors and smoke dampers and fire dampers, etc. So if you want to look at any of those, please do so. And if you think that we've if you want to contribute or change them, then let us know.
Yeah, it's a movable feast. We know a document is never finished because things change, opinion changed, and regulation and guidance changes. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up. That's been an excellent meeting. This is going to be an excellent document, and thank you, because it's thanks to you guys. I'm sure we'll see some of you later.
Yeah, spread the word as well. Spread the word.
Thank you, everybody. Nice to meet you. Cheerio. Bye bye.
Cheers all. Bye bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.